Okay.
Manted.
We are going live. And
Okay.
it does sound like we're doing a sacrificial sacrifice then.
A sacrificial sacrifice.
Yes.
Nice one, Michael.
Yeah.
How was your nap?
I'm still waking up, thanks, Yann. Good evening, everybody. How is our audio? Because I'm often muting everybody.
Yep. Hello, everybody. Can you hear all of us? And can you hear? Well, I don't know. Is he over there? Can you hear Heart Ben?
Ben Beast.
Ben Beast.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, this is Ben, also known as HeartBeast, who does some wonderful Godot courses tutorials. In fact, he's how I got started, so blame him. You're very welcome for that. And he does a lot of work with, I guess, pixel art, lo-fi, 1D, 2D games. Is that fair? How would you describe that?
2D, yeah. One bit, 2D. Yeah. A 1D game would be,
It just has no depth. Let's see what we got. Hello, they're all here. Audio is fine. Evening, it's all good. Great. Hello, Roderick, Azrael, and Gerard, and Rayus, and Juan, and all the other peoples.
Good evening. So we're going to talk about quite a few things this evening. I want to start off. We've introduced Ben. We'll join him and talking about various things later on. But first, we've got an announcement. Didn't think it would be ready for the stream, but I shall play the video now, and we'll talk about it briefly afterwards.
Hey folks, I'm really pleased to be able to announce the release of the Geometry Nodes for Beginners course. In this one, we're going to be covering all of the basics of Geometry Nodes, the new Geometry Node system in Blender 2.93. By the end of the session, you'll be able to confidently navigate the Geometry Nodes workspace with its node graph and spreadsheet editor. We will understand the specifics of the attribute workflow. We're also going to be learning about creating geometry directly with nodes, and we'll go so far as to create an entire scene animated within a single node tree. Geometry Nodes is a very new system in Blender, and it opens up a whole load of new workflows that are really going to enable and enhance your creativity. I'm really excited to see the kinds of things that you're going to make, so I hope you'll join me in this course. I'll see you there.
Back to us. Isn't that exciting? We've got a new course.
Got a new course. That's pretty exciting.
So
you have links for it.
We do, and I think I've just pasted a broken link, so I'll delete the first one because I'm a genius. Turns out I can't hit. I hit all the buttons. There we go. So that one's
Mikey,
there.
I love you, but Ben, are you hiring?
No. So we didn't think this would be ready just yet, but Aaron has managed to release the GeoNodes part of the Blender Creative Suite. So if you've already got the Blender Creative Suite, it will appear in your bundle shortly. Also, if you want to purchase it individually, there is the link. We've got a 1-week sale at $9, so grab it while it's cheap. And for those who have backed at the our previous level, so bringing it back to the Kickstarter now, I need to go grab the actual wording. So lifetime members will get this as well as I've forgotten what we called them. Did we call it the back catalogue?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, you put it on the back catalogue. Nice. Oh, because it's part of the Blender Creative Suite. For those of you who don't know, the back catalogue is part of our Kickstarter campaign where you can get the courses we're trying to make and a section of our all courses. We'll explain that in depth in a bit. I'm slowing down. I don't know why.
It's fine. We've been really busy. So that's there. That's very exciting that we've got another course under the banner. For those who are interested, if you're backing at the back catalogue or above, you'll get that as part of your pledge level. Also, if you want to buy the Blender Creative Suite individually, it will become part of that. The Blender Creative Suite's price will also be going up next week as all the prices shift up. So just want to get that out there now, that if you know anybody who's interested and wants to get in whilst it's still lower, do so now.
Mikey, is there a suggested order to take the plethora of Blender courses? That's probably a good idea. That's a question from Azrael.
That is a good idea. I'll work on a roadmap, but the way that we've approached each of the topics within the Blender Creative Suite is to make sure that you're starting from a beginner's perspective on all of them. So, for instance, when we get to texturing, you'll get the models provided. We're not going to ask you to model as part of that. That's a different part of the Blender Creative Suite. So we're making sure we're approaching all of the topics from basics. So you'll learn all of the basics and build up from there.
Yeah.
As Yann and I know, we've been talking a lot, and just before the stream as well, assumed knowledge is a really dangerous thing, and it suddenly makes something highly inaccessible to people. So we really want to avoid that, especially with any of the introductory stuff. So that for us is really, really important.
So yeah, that's very exciting. Geometry nodes are new in Blender as 2.9, I believe.
Procedural modeling. In fact, that's what that is in the background. I
thought that was monitor.
Yeah, and on the monitor it's the. So everything in there, everything is procedurally modeled. So it's really awesome what you can do with geometry nodes. It's going to be a completely different style of creation than your typical modeling with normal geometry, essentially. So it's phenomenal how you can just artistically link nodes together and create a city, lots of things. In fact, I've been playing with a city for something that might come in the future. But
very nice. So yeah, I want to get onto talking to Ben about his stuff and his process and so on. Before we do, in case you've missed it, I've just loaded the new prototype of the action RPG Kickstarter. The link is in the doobly-doo for the Kickstarter. It's iterating on the dynamic combat, so moving with combat. Specifically, heavy attacks and one-handed weapon work. Stamina has been reworked. So attacks cost stamina, dodging costs stamina. You can't sprint or dodge with no stamina, but you can attack. Also, skeletons won't wait a quarter of a second before attacking. So if you try that little walking backwards, kiting them trick that some of you have been trying, you know who you are. They're going to cut you to pieces. Also a few other things, but it's in the patch notes.
And what did you do to the throne, Yann?
That was in the last patch. Mikey would cheese the boss, and he would hide on the throne because the pathfinding would mean the boss couldn't see him. So I put spikes on it. Mikey, would you like to give a quick rundown of how it looks right now, and then we can focus on it?
Yes, because there have been quite a few changes. So bear with me a moment. I'll launch it. I will switch the camera over to Godot in a second.
One thing I'm interested in is there anything that would make you want to try developing 3D, Ben?
Well, I currently have a 3D project that I'm working on.
Dun, dun, dun.
I did it!
What? Say what? Yeah, I did the Mrs.'s Jam, the 4 developers, and I'm working with another developer. It's kind of just a side project that we'll release on itch.io, but it's a little 3D tic-tac tanks. It's tic-tac-toe, but with tanks.
Oh, nice.
Tic-tacs. Very nice.
Although the tic-tac-toe inspirations are pretty minimal. You just get extra points if you have your units lined up across the board. Outside of that, it doesn't really take much more.
Some people were missing basic gameplay in this. Specifically, you'll regenerate health while you don't have a weapon out. So I've put posters in to teach them how to do that and dodge. And I've also put a special HeartBeast one just for the stream because, Heart Ben's here.
The Ben Beast. Oh, nah, that's not a good weapon, Yann.
Stamina is really useful right now. Other thing. Weapon damage now actually changes the damage the weapons do. Stop laughing.
That's a good feature.
Yeah. That was a great bug.
Making sure the weapons deal the right amount of damage.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is the tweak on the weapons themselves, because
I got a note saying two-handed weapons aren't worth it. Like, they're one-shot kills. Oh.
Yeah, as demonstrated there. And if you run out of stamina now, I will remember to dodge at some point. But I do like my green potions. They are so useful.
I love the effect on the
little
weapons
trail.
when they swing. Yeah, it looks cool.
I've been playing with plugins. That one is the Hungry Proton Trails. It's really useful for 3D projects. I also really like this green potion. We should show off the green potion. It's, well, you'll see it. La 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 la. We're 30 seconds behind, so
Yeah.
Mike, are you one of those players that just hoards your potions and never uses them?
Yep, that's the one.
go use the green potion. Where are you going? Oh, you're going for the flaming axe.
Oh my word. As you can tell, I'm an idiot.
So the green potion disguises you as a skeleton with long hair, and the skeletons won't attack you for 10 seconds.
Okay.
And then we got a
I'm
series.
I'm not sure what happened there though. Oh, now we're speed running it.
Yeah. Well, he ran onto the spikes rather than waiting for the spikes to finish, and then immediately died.
Oh.
Yeah, I haven't awoken.
Rookie mistake, really.
I haven't woken up yet.
I've also seen him run directly into the fire, which is always fun. Yeah, he's going for the one-shot super axe.
Ah!
You don't have green potions now, so
Boom.
Yeah, grab the X while they're.
yeah, but check this out.
No.
Oh. Oh, you can turn off the trap so you don't have to do it on the way back.
Yeah.
I see.
We thought
a lot of people complaining that it was too hard. It's like, well, I can. Oh, right.
I've played the level 50 times and I can still do it.
I made it. I know the timing. I know how you're supposed to.
We'll just edit out that part. Oh, wait, this is live, right?
Yeah. Boink. Also, Goldie the boss is no longer gold. So.
Yep, I've picked up a potion so I can show it off in a moment.
Okay.
I'm going to ignore these guys.
Well, Ben and I are still watching you pick up the green potion.
Nice.
And remember, you do go faster and heal when you're not carrying a weapon. So for all of you people who have security swords.
Securities. I like the fact I can now time the attacks.
Yes. So two-handed weapons, for those of you who haven't played the last two builds, don't let you move when you attack. One-handed weapons do, although I need to play with the animations because we're using inverse kinematics there.
Oh dear. I like the fact that they rotate around their spawn points sometimes.
Yeah, well, the turn radius isn't instant, so.
Aha, I have killed the king so I can sit on his throne. Ow. Aha. Doink.
So yeah, if you've not played the current build, we do have builds for Windows, Mac, and Linux. Macs and Linux. We have builds for the desktop-y things. For some reason, the Mac ones, you have to run some sort of weird command to get them to work. I don't know why. I don't own a Mac. But you should just get a Linux machine and you'll be fine.
Yes. Have you included that on the itch.io? A
No,
command?
because I don't know what it is or how to do it. But I will
Okay.
do.
Yeah.
We are currently sitting at 101 backers as I speak. It'll probably change at £7,520. So we're over the funded line. We're getting very close to our first stretch goal. We'll have the overworld. We'll be using the height terrain plugin and some outdoor assets and all kinds of awesome stuff.
Do you want to see some of the concept art?
Yeah.
Are you asking me? Because
would
I definitely do.
okay. Ben, would you like to? Well, how about a cup of coffee while you're here? Donut?
Yes.
Yes, please.
I should prepare the concept art then, and then I can show you.
Oh,
Dang, I just got baited.
Yeah, this is our version of a bait and switch. We say we have concept art, and it's somewhere. By the way, very nice.
It's not downloaded. That's the only issue. So I just need to download the few items.
We do this for a living.
Yeah.
We're fine. Everything's great.
So, for those who have taken our grease pencil course, Paul will be joining us to do the concept art.
Which is one of the courses that will be in the thing. If you're not sure what we're talking about with the courses, by the way, which is entirely possible, you may have just randomly followed us or just said, oh, HeartBeast, I know him. Who are these two idiots he's talking to? Our Kickstarter is to make a 3D action RPG in Godot 4 when it's stable. The prototype is in Godot 3.4, well, 3.34, whatever the current one is. But we will be transposing it to Godot 4, and in Blender and in LMMS to make the music. And our stretch goals are expanding those. So if you back any of those courses, so if you back the Godot one, for instance, you get all the Godot stretch goals that come with it. You don't have to, we're not going to nickel and dime you for them. Mikey, do you have a... Oh, and there's a Duggan. Hi, Duggan.
Hello.
Do you have the concept art, Mikey?
I almost do.
We're almost competent.
I'm just waiting for a Discord
you
to
have these
download
things
it.
on your stream. Do you guys want to see a thing? Oh, I wasn't expecting you to say yes.
Just kidding.
Wah, wah. Oh, well.
Wait, so this course, what was the software in it? The concept art?
Concept art is going to be in Blender using grease pencil.
Okay.
Yeah.
Grease
LMMS,
pencil. Is that a plugin then?
weirdly, it's actually a whole mode in Blender that no one seems to know about that does 2D and animation.
Which is
I
pretty,
didn't know about it.
it's pretty awesome. So let's this should work. I'm going to cover up my face so you two can still be on the screen.
I mean,
So here we've got Aria. I think I showed her off the other week.
I don't.
You'll have to
It's
wait.
it's on the stream, not on the Discord. Okay.
In fact, to move over to the next image,
I attempted to change our in-game Aria's colors to match those because Aria's a badass. Am I allowed to say that on YouTube?
Well, you
She's
just
a disobedient donkey.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
it's fine. And then because the next section or the concept art that we're heading towards is all about creating the buildings of village. We've got a couple of example buildings that Paul's popped together, and also dungeon as well. So that's pretty cool. The bookcases in the dungeon, the chest, etc. He's gone super detailed with this, which is pretty awesome. And again, this is the power of doing Blender. You can add and remove detail very, very easily. And these are coming in. We wanted to show a bit of progress. So from the sketchy stage, looking at all the different types of potential building, to this would be kind of like you're blocking out, making sure your shapes feel right, making sure they've got form to them, and then finally a bit of a palette as well to go along with it. And you'll notice, even though these aren't necessarily in our current palette, but they are in a palette. So we've got 4 colors here, haven't we? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, which is really, really useful when you're making a scene. And as we spoke about quite a while ago, actually, when we were talking with one of the previous prototypes, the moment we switched to using a palette, the whole world became cohesive very, very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back, you can see some of our previous, before we actually started Tabula Rasa and just started the whole thing again, we had an overworld with the character before Aria, and just changing the lighting to match the color palette made such a difference.
Also trying to hammer home the point that when you're making a game, use the assets you've got, even if they're low poly and don't quite work yet. We really wanted to hammer home that point because we try on different mannequins until we developed a character, and then from there you can start adding in further detail. Especially as a small team, you don't want to spend, we'll make 10 different characters and see which one we like the best. That's a lot of pre-production time spent on developing characters, where that doesn't really change the game. Now, it may change how a player plays the game, which is interesting. You know, if you've got someone who's tall and stout versus someone who's nimble, you might actually play the game completely different, as we found out.
Well, this leads me to my favorite High Octane story. High Octane was a game in the 90s, late 90s, by Bullfrog. Peter Molyneux, and he made this high-tech hovercar racing game, and all the different teams had stats, but the stats weren't plugged in. The cars all had the exact same handling, but everyone played them as if the stats mattered.
Yes.
Which is a much easier way of coding things, by the way. Just let the player pretend it works. It's great.
I'm pretty sure Rocket League is similar.
Maybe. Okay, so we've talked about that. We'll come back to the stretch goals and how we're doing on the Kickstarter towards the end. Let's talk to HeartBeast Ben. Hi Ben, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Fantastic.
Glad to be here.
So that was no. Ben, you are currently working on, or you have been working on, a project called Demon Lock, which I've been stalking on your YouTube channel. Would you like to tell the lovely people on the internets what a Demon Lock is?
So Demon Lock is a monster taming game, but instead of taming monsters, you summon and control demons. And I've been working on it for too long at this point.
Too real.
but I think it has a very I would say a pretty unique art style too. With it's mostly 2-bit, so there's only 4 colors, and I've got a palette swapper in there so I can change those colors. But most of the time, it's kind of this dark-looking purple, and I'm pretty excited about it. I've been having a lot of fun.
Yep. And for the little bits I've seen, you've been adding some procedural generation in some areas, but not others. Some cool little effects for the portals. The combat system has been doing a lot of revising. Like, you guys should check out Ben's channel. The journey he's going through with these is really cool. One thing I'm really interested in is when you picked the game up, because you started with your brother went off to do other things, and then you were like, I'm going to put this project down for a bit. And you picked it up again and basically revamped the entire thing.
Yeah.
So some of the decisions you've made would appear to make this process much harder. And I'm thinking specifically things like the limitations you've given yourself of no words on screen. How has it been working with those?
I came into it realizing that the scope of the project, so I'd been working on it with my brother, and we made a little alpha, and we got a lot of players to play it. And then I realized, I thought, oh, this is really good. I'm going to make it into this big game. And I made all these, scope adjustments that were in the wrong direction. And it just turned into this massive ordeal. And the development on it was dragging out. I was working on it consistently, but not really making progress, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Like, I felt like I was putting so much work into it and never seeing any actual progress. And I just kind of realized that the biggest thing that was holding me back was the fact that I wasn't holding myself back at all. Does that make sense?
It does.
And so I made a list of constraints, and just kind of on a whim, I put no text on there too. And visually, that's made the game a lot more interesting to look at. I think it's forced me to branch outside of some of the standard ways that people approach UI, and so that's been kind of interesting. That one's definitely tricky, and I'm still determined to do as little text as possible. Depending on how things go with design, I may end up having to put some text here and there, just to make sure that it's clear to the player. Yeah. I think it's a really good constraint to go into initially to force you to try and come up with other solutions. But I still might have some places where I have to bring it back in. But just having a bunch of constraints made me realize that I needed to start over, and that's kind of what you saw when I kind of redid the whole thing. It was like, okay, these constraints, I can't use what I had before. I can use some of it, but I need to start over.
I've always found that constraints are really helpful in creativity, because otherwise I get one of two problems. I get choice paralysis, where I can make anything, so I don't know where to start. Or I get feature creep. And Mikey and I are both really, really good at giving in to feature creep. Like, we will just add everything in and go, honestly, I find it helpful as well to think of restrictions or constraints as scaffolding rather than something holding you back. There's something to help you build up.
Yeah.
Because it saves so much time. right? In your case, you've developed a really interesting visual style, a really interesting UI, and some really interesting gameplay loops, and it's helped you find things that were sort of, you're overly reliant on text in some areas, or you're, whatever it might be. In our case, I wanted to make a game where I want the player to be moving and I want them to feel mobile and position to be important. So one of the first things we decided was no shields. We're not going to have blocking. We're not going to let you turtle. Which it turns out is also what they did in one of the Souls games. And now everyone's looking and going, oh, you're making a Souls-like. It's like, I don't know. I've never played them. But sure, it sounds great. If you want to give us millions of dollars, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, having a framework is really, really important. I've found no end of times when modeling, for instance, even if it's just a time framework, model what you like, but you've got half an hour. And then it helps you really focus on, well, if I want to complete the task, I'm not going to be focused on a tiny bit of the model. I'm going to focus on the thing holistically, focus on the whole thing. Also, when it comes to music creation, because I should talk about that, because that's going to be part of the Kickstarter as well. With music creation, the constraints of having a set of instruments and not deviating from them, or playing with hundreds of thousands of them, the number of times that I've opened up a new set of instruments and I sit there for 3 hours and I've just played the same little riff over and over again, just trying out different sounds. I mean, that's not productive. That's cool. I mean, it's exciting, holding down a key and an orchestra appearing, but at the same time, I'm like, I haven't done anything for 3 hours. It was cool, but now I need to focus and create a piece, and that's different. And I found even years ago, in fact, I was probably more creative when I was younger, but not just for being young, but for the fact I didn't have access to all of these wonderful instruments. I had 128 instruments that all sounded rubbish. So you really had to work hard to get there. And I think that's kind of why chiptunes still have a place in everybody's heart, because they were so creative of how to get the sounds out of hardware that couldn't really produce any.
I find that's one of the appeals with any kind of lo-fi game aesthetic, whether it's low poly or one-dimensional, one-bit, or chiptune, is you have to create a world with very, very limited palette. So you have to really simplify it. It's a bit like those old Japanese sume paintings. You can do the whole thing in one stroke, but you only get one stroke with the brush. So what's the perfect way, or the most evocative way of making this?
Yeah, I mean, with Demon Lock, I only have the 4 colors. And one of the things that I always have to keep in mind is visual priority. And so pretty much anything that should be very, very low priority is the 2 darkest colors, and anything that I want to be higher priority will be the 2 lighter colors, with the lightest color being the highest priority on the screen. And you can use other things like size to help with that too. If you make something bigger, it's going to have a bigger visual priority. But I'm constantly, in the mock-ups that I'm making, I'm constantly tweaking what am I going to make white in this scene, and what am I going to make the lighter color, and which colors are going to be darker, because that's what the players are going to see.
Yep. I've found, so when I someone put me onto the low spec website, which has all these color palettes for games. If you haven't used it, it's great. In our game, we're actually using quite a big palette. I think it's like 32 colors, but we're just using these colors. And even there, like, our game is kind of low poly. It's kind of a low poly inspired aesthetic. Flat surface maybe is a better way of saying it. But just having these things down in these consistent colors really helps. Also, one of the big things, if you are using like very key colors, and Ben is very good at not doing this, so don't do this. Don't use red and green as key color elements, because it's just bad design. Like, it's inaccessible for 5% of the population.
Blue and orange are better looking anyways. So
Right.
Orange and teal for the win. Definitely not got orange and teal lighting up today.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I'm curious, when you're starting a game, what's your focus? Like, what's the first element? Like, do you have a cool mechanic? Do you have a feeling? Do you have an aesthetic? Where do you start from?
Well, that's changed over the years. I think
let's specify it.
With Demon Lock, Demon Lock's an exception, really. it started out as kind of a joke. My brother and I were like, yeah, let's make a Pokemon game, but we're gonna clone it completely and then just change one thing. That didn't happen. But that's what we were gonna do, is just completely clone Pokemon and then change one thing, and it kind of turned into this. And I would say that the design process for it has been kind of starting with a base, and then each change that I make is like specifically into the same direction. It's like if we start with Pokemon and they were like, okay, we're going to add permadeath. Like that's the one change we're going to make. And we realized that that was kind of like a darker direction to go in. And every single change that we've made since then has just been slightly farther in that darker direction. So it's kind of like we started with something that everybody knew. And then instead of making a million like adjacent changes to it, each change has been like one more step in a specific direction, if that makes sense.
But I think that works well because it means that your design process is coherent in the sense that all the directions are pulling in one direction.
Yep.
All the changes.
That's what, yeah.
I used to teach public speaking to college students. They're not sort of pulling apart. It's all like heading towards one vision, which I think really helps.
Yeah.
I mean, I know in my case, I almost always start with player experience. Like to me, the game is how the player feels, and everything else is like the tools that we use to get there. So like in the action RPG project, it's all about feeling like a plucky adventurer who can move very fast and is like able to take down lots of NPCs, in our case skeletons, and constantly ducking and diving. And so everything has to go to that. So if we have a mechanic where a couple of weeks back, the animations wouldn't let you move while you attack, so I just put a move lock in. So every time you attack, you froze in place, which meant the entire game had this stuttering rhythm, which is the opposite. So we had to spend a week and a half just completely revamping animation in combat because that doesn't work.
But also, I just wanted to touch on a good point there you made about starting with other people's inspiration. So we're going to make a Pokemon clone, and then it just goes off from there. There's, I would say, maybe shame. There is shame in saying, look at what I made, and it's a direct rip-off of something else. But using other people's work as inspiration is not a bad thing.
I will say trying to recreate another project as a learning experience has some value.
Yeah. That's why there's hundreds of Blender donuts out there.
Right.
Yeah.
But what can you do with that knowledge? Where can you take that knowledge? What else can you now create? Like, where's all the chocolate eclairs? I mean,
that's one of the things I really like watching what students make with our courses is when they take the basic idea. So I'll say, for instance, like in Discovering Godot, we've got this simple 2-player local multiplayer soccer game, football game. And it's just using little toys, kicking a little wooden ball, basic introduction to 3D and physics, right? So, and then some people change what the game is. So sometimes the game's gonna have, the ball's gonna have insane bounce, or there's gonna be multiple. You're controlling more than one character. Just those little changes and see where they go with that is so much fun to watch.
Yeah, it's in video game trailers they actually talk about this, where when you have a potential customer coming and looking at your trailer, the first thing they want to know is what is the genre, which is basically like saying what games are you copying, right? And then the next thing they want to know is what's unique. And so it's really important to have both of those and have it be very clear to the player. Like, okay, this is the genre, and this is the thing that I want to be unique. And with courses and learning experiences, you don't have to have the unique element, like a lot of the tutorial videos and stuff that I've done on YouTube, there's nothing really unique about the games that we make. And that's okay, because like you said, it's a learning experience. There's all those donuts, right?
Right.
But it's really fun to see how the players then take that kind of established genre that's just kind of like everything else, and they say, okay, what can I make unique about this that makes it different?
Well, our inventory system began life as your inventory system. Like, it's basically being rewritten because there's a whole bunch of things we had to change, but it started off from that point. Like, that's where that is. And the moment we're like, well, we have to have containers, and we have more than one container, and we want the inventory to be persistent between levels. Like, okay, so I have to rewrite this bit and change this, and I need some sort of singleton over here, or
Mhm.
auto mode specifically, rather than singleton. But it's a really great way of learning. Like you take one of these small projects and you iterate from it. The trick is don't just keep making that one thing. Push it a little further, see where you can go with it. Because otherwise, you haven't really followed a tutorial. You've picked up a recipe, which is great. They can be great.
Yeah.
But I got really frustrated yesterday because I'm trying to learn shaders and I don't have the maths for it. So I'm hitting a wall. So I went to GodotShaders.com. They have these little code snippets. I'm like, great. Here's one for a Fresnel effect. I know what a Fresnel effect is. I worked in theater lighting. Let's see how they did it. What is this?
Uh-huh.
It turns out it's also got 2 hash values in the middle of it that if you're just looking at it, you're like, well, everything I've been taught about including random magic numbers, one of them's like 48,000 and the other's like 121.475839. And like, where have you got these from? It just turns out they're fudges that make it work.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're going to be picking up little things like that, try and get the why it works, not just the I've copied this code and I've put it in. Otherwise, you run into problems where your game gets bigger and suddenly, well, this worked fine in this situation, but it doesn't. Like it's not. It has to be scaled. It has to.
Having some deeper understanding is a great thing to have. Otherwise, as you say, if you've copied and pasted a load of code, you'll have something maybe functional at the end, but you haven't learned from that. So the next time you make a project, you've also got to go and copy all that stuff again. Because you never learnt how to use it or learnt how it interacts with your code. You're just going through putting loads of recipes together rather than becoming a chef.
What if you go back and watch your own tutorial videos so you can remember how you did it?
I've done that. Yeah, I go to my own course for
shame.
reference.
Use reference material. Like no coder I know remembers all the functions. Like go look at the documentation and you're allowed to look at your own stuff. The problem I have is when I look at my old stuff and I can't remember why I did it.
Or you look at your old stuff and you're like, why am I doing? You idiot. Mike,
Like, what?
Mikey of 3 years ago, what are you thinking?
The other thing is I've had to teach myself to stop putting joke comments in my code because like a year later I don't get the joke. It's just which is hard for me because I don't know if you know this about me. I'm kind of a smartass.
So you're like, oh no, my past self is so much smarter than I am.
Basically.
He got the joke and I don't. What's wrong?
I'm just frustrated and he's laughing at me. Look.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you're working on a 3D tic-tac-tank thing.
Yeah.
What made you try the 3D? Because up to now you've been doing a lot of the 2D stuff. So
the Mrs.'s jam was 3D only.
that would do. There's no restriction.
The assets, because we all had to use the same assets, right? That's how he does his 4
and you didn't want
developers,
to like
one
take
art
a
pack.
screenshot of it.
Yeah, and I could. That was available to me. I could have screenshotted the assets and then made it 2D, but I was like, I'll do 3D, and it was easy. Like it was super easy to do 3D, and I had a lot of fun with it.
I find that's one of the things especially with. I mean, when I was learning Godot, that was something I was aware of. Is it's a big jump.
Mm-hmm.
How big a jump was it?
Because I'm so familiar with Godot, it wasn't hardly a jump at all.
Yeah.
The biggest change, like it was just one more axis, right? That was it.
And a couple
and
of
like
differently. Like this is spatial instead of, which is changing anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't really a big jump for me. And I haven't worked with 3D very much in the past. Although I will say that I had done a decent amount of Blender.
Mm.
So that might have helped too going into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't a big jump at all. It was pretty easy and a lot of fun.
I found the trick for me was to stop trying to reinvent the wheel. Like I would spend hours trying to figure out how to do something in code and then say, I wonder if there's a function or a node that does this for me. Something I discovered this week, by the way, and I got this from GD Quest's optimization page, which I didn't realize, was you get significant performance boosts on large complex code if you use the node rather than write it yourself, because the node is compiled in C++ or C#.
Uh-huh.
And
C++.
C++. So if you have to use a timer, use a timer though. Don't write it in code. If you're at the point where you have to optimize your code. If it doesn't make a difference, don't worry about it. But we were getting severe lag spikes on that game a couple of weeks back. And I just basically had to go through and tidy up the code. And
we had a really weird bug as well, didn't we? Where I think I had I don't think it was out of date, but I had a bought
this was like
copy
3 days
of Godot.
ago. And I'm like, okay, Michael, I've got the thing back. So at the point where I was getting 4 frames a second, I'm now getting 25, and I'm on a much worse computer than you. Try it out. He tries it, and like I'm getting 4. Like, but I'm in the same place as you. And look at my what
What
version of Godot are you using? The most recent one, 3.2.
Swapped over, runs like a dream.
Oh yeah, it looks great. All right, so the one tutorial you wish you'd never made. I will start with one. You don't have to have one, but I will start with one.
Okay.
When I was making Discovering Godot and I was doing Heistmeisters, I came up with this detection code, which did line of sight and field of view. And I sort of tweaked and hacked and tweaked and hacked and came up with a slightly hacky way of doing it, and then immediately forgot why it worked. And now every time I want to do it, I look at this code and go, let's not do this one. And I kind of wish I hadn't taught it this way. Like I could have just used a raycast or an area rather than just, all read up on how World Space 2D works, which I now understand, but at the time was a bit shaky on. Is there anything you regret like that?
I honestly don't have any that I regret. I mean, it's a little bit annoying to have I have all my tutorials still live on YouTube. So even like tutorials from back when I very first started my channel and I was using Game Maker 8 on a Mac, and it's just like trying to follow that now would be absolutely horrible because Game Maker's changed so much since then. And, okay, maybe actually I thought of one. Probably the video that I did about loading models in Godot.
So why that one?
Just because I didn't know what I was doing at all. I was just like, hey, look, I got it to load this horse, and here's how.
Yep.
But it's not actually really useful. So
I remember there was a guy who actually saw my talk at GodotCon last year, which is why you should be making tutorials. He went, I'll make tutorials. I'm brand new to Godot. Like, no, learn it first. No, I'm fine. And I'm not going to do names or the rest of it. Like, I'm not trying to shame people, but his tutorial was how he got a GUI working in 3D in Godot. And what he did was he made a mesh plane and sort of forced it onto the camera. He did the Unity solution. It's like, but Godot has control elements. All this is handled for you. No, I've done it. But this, don't teach people this. Why would you teach people this? This is...
It's pretty common when people come from other places, other programming languages to kind of do things the way that they were familiar with. I did it, I'm sure, with Godot as well, coming from Game Maker, where I was like, oh, well, I'm going to do it this way. And it's like, well, that's the Game Maker way of doing it. Why would you do that?
And
you should do Godot.
Right? Like sometimes it feels good at the time, and then like 6 months later you realize, oh, that's completely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Mikey,
I tried using Z-index for Y sorting.
Yep, okay.
As an example of a terrible way to try and do things.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work, by the way, at all.
No.
You can't use Z-index for that.
When I first started, someone said to me, I don't like how Godot makes you use string references to get nodes. Try and find a way around that. So I made every variable global in an auto load. And like 2 weeks later, I saw what I'd done. Like, no, don't do that.
Yeah, it is really nice that Godot 4 is going to remove a lot of string literals.
I'm very impressed with Godot 4. The latest nightly build now allows me to render lighting and particles again, although it crashes. So I can use it for 5 minutes. It looks great. Moment it gets a bit more stable, I'm going to take some screenshots of the course. Michael, do you have a regretty thing now that we have 3 instructing people?
Kind of. I mean, a lot of my stuff's brilliant, of course, but the There was one moment where I'm showing in a course. I'm showing people a Python script that I've written, and it's a functional script, and it works. And the comments from professional coders afterwards, I'm like, yeah, I said that at the beginning. I did say I'm not an expert in this. It's really early on in my Blender Python sort of like focus coding wise, and I'm like, yeah, of course. And I look at it and go, yeah, when you go for I in range, you don't need to then increase the iterator. It does that automatically. Of course,
Yeah.
I'd just come from doing C++ where you have to do a lot of that stuff manually. So yeah, it was more of a eye-opening moment that, yeah, some things you can take from other coding languages. Other times it's a different paradigm, different way of coding. Especially with Python versus C++. I'm not sure you can get to that are quite...
I think that's one of the big things that trips people up when they start working with Godot, and they're trying to use paradigms from especially Unity and Unreal, where actually that's not the way this is designed to work. Like, you can do it this way, but it's going to be really clunky. It's much easier just to use the scene tree and nodes and declarative coding wherever you can. Like, write as little code as you can. You don't need to be doing as much as that. And it's not even a speed thing. It's just, otherwise, the way Godot works, it's really easy to get yourself lost in your own code.
Why fight against the tool? The tool's been designed to do it in a certain way. So yeah, as you were saying earlier, using a node is a lot quicker than writing the code, the underlying code yourself, because it's running in C++ rather than being interpreted.
I realized pretty early when I started working with Godot that the more that I was going to be able to make static in my project versus dynamic, like anything that I could do in the engines and have it be static and just have it be pre-made was going to be way better than anything that because I would just, if you make a bunch of code that dynamically creates nodes and all this stuff, it's like, that's going to be a giant mess. The more stuff I can keep static, the better.
I mean, sometimes you want to be bringing individual nodes in, obviously, or scenes more specifically, like you want to spawn in an item. But don't
exactly.
do everything. Like, do it when you have to do it.
Exactly.
I also find the more I worked with Godot, there was this moment I had where I suddenly realized why inheritance and extension was so important in Godot. Because, you're using it and you're like, okay, if I'm in this node, I can use this command. You don't really think you can use it because, it's a rigid body, which inherits from a physics body, which inherits from an object, which inherits from a spatial, all that. And there was a moment we were doing Godot Getaway, and we just got the multiplayer working. And we have these two little cars, and I'm testing them out. We have a little physics ball I'm using to test. And I get the host, and I drive it, and I hit the ball, and the ball rolls away. Great. I get the other car, and I drive it, and I hit it, and the ball stays still. And I can't move it. I'm like, but it's a physics body. So I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at my code. And what I'm doing in my code is the host is deciding where everything is. So you're sending where you are. You're sending your translation, your position, every frame. And it's taking that translation, and it's saying to the ball, this car is in this translation. The ball's going, okay. And then it's sending the translation of the ball back. But physics doesn't work through translation. Physics works through impulses. So what I should have been doing is taking either the impulse or just saying, here's the input, move the car on every screen. And the moment I realized that, and like physics has to come from a physics object, it doesn't work through translation, my entire understanding of Godot really changed. So the more you play with it, the more little epiphanies like that you get.
Yeah.
And you also know when something is the right node to use. Like, I love using grid maps, like the 3D tile maps. I think they're amazing, but they have in fact one major problem that shows multiple ways. A grid map is one object. What that means is if I have a limited amount of lights and I'm shining on the grid map, they shine on the entire thing. Any light shining anywhere on this counts as it's shining on one object, which slows the game down. It means things like, if I want to write like an occlusion culling algorithm, where things are a certain distance away, don't render them. Well, the grid map is one object.
Yeah.
So if you move away from the origin, the entire thing will vanish.
Surprise!
Yeah.
And that's fine. You just have to, know the tool.
You just have to understand. Yeah.
I think grid map might be my favorite node. Do you have a favorite node? I don't know, weird interview question.
My favorite node in Godot.
If you're on a desert island and you could take one node with you,
the MMO node. No,
that's amazing. Yeah, make play MMO. It's a great node. You should all play with it.
The Fortnite node. That's the one.
The $1 million pound node. I mean,
yeah.
Probably the animation player.
Good call.
Gonna have to go to the animation player. That's just, you can do too much with that node.
I'm still learning.
I have a lot of fun with it.
Like the way we've got being able to move while the animations play. Like the animations we've got don't have movement in them; they're all static. So what I've done is I've duplicated the attack animations for the player because only the player can move while attacking. I've removed the tracks for everything below the spine. So it's just arm, shoulder, head. I've put in a second animation player and it just plays over the top. And because of its position in the scene tree, it takes priority.
Uh-huh.
But you have to know that animation players can be played at the same time, that scene tree order matters. Like you have to play with it and get
And there's interesting problems because the player's not stood like this, going like that. The player's off to one side. So you've got to be careful, otherwise they're doing this over here because the hip bone.
So we have to use inverse kinematics and sort of draw the hand over here and then stop drawing it. And
yeah.
And that's where that lovely diagram I shared you came from.
That
Hello, Jennifer. Michael, would you like to have a quick play of the game as we're coming up to the hour?
I will, and I'll actually share my screen for you guys as well, so you can comment as
while we're doing that. If you guys have any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns, interpretive dances, or jingles for the game, or for Ben, or you want to ask him, hey, where can I buy your courses, or sing him a little serenade, you should type those things in.
Yeah, I like being serenaded.
You play guitar, don't you? Have I seen that one of your?
Yeah, I kind of play uke more now, just because it's easier and lighter and can carry it around. My brother's a significantly better guitar player. My other brother's a significantly better piano player. So
stream button. I tried playing the guitar, but I just found it didn't make any kind of pleasant noise, no matter how hard I blew into it. It was really ugly. Don't encourage that. That is such a dad joke. Ooh, green lights. What's happening? The stream doesn't like it. I'm getting weird flicker on Discord. I'm just going to watch it on YouTube.
Yeah, it might be best if I'm streaming in two places. That might actually be
the OBS is.
What's the secret to eternal youth, Ben? You still look 20. That's a really expensive question.
For that, you're going to have to buy a whole bunch of his courses.
Yeah.
So for those who missed it earlier, we've got some posters in the scene now, Yann. What's Bob saying?
So Bob has two things. One is if you put your weapon away, you'll heal. And the other is you can press C or V while moving to dodge. I was going to get double tap to move or to dodge, but I couldn't be bothered, so I didn't. Do you plan on continuing the action RPG if you don't reach the higher tiers? Do you plan on continue improving? Quite possibly. We'll have to see how it goes. The downside with waiting for God of 4 to come out is we're going to have to do a complete God of 4 thing at the same time because everyone kind of expects it. I mean, I suppose we could say, hey, Ben, do you want to make a course for this? But he has his own thing. And I think, hey, do you want to not make money on your courses and help us make money on ours? Might be a bit of a no. But, feel free if you want to. You're welcome. I suspect this thing has a lot of life to it. Like, I suspect there's a lot we can do with this. If we get to, I think the tier after this one is procedural generation, or is it the one after that? No, the one after this is equipable armor and stuff like that. I think. I can't remember. I'll go check. I have the thing right here I can look. Character classes is next. So yes. Magic and particle systems. And then after that is turning this into a roguelite, because I think that's a really interesting project. Like some permadeath in there and randomized character. So Probably. I'm not going to commit to that because, we also have to make sure we can get enough food and things. Oh, you made the jump this time.
I did. Only just, though. Did you notice?
I did. And you did still take some damage on a spike, so well done.
Yes. I am amazing. I'm going to nuke all these guys.
Of course you are.
Because that's my
Yeah, a
standard.
lot of the time with courses, the amount of future support you can do really depends on whether or not people continue to buy it, right? Like,
Yeah, and it's not even because you don't want to support it. It's because if you've got other courses that more people are getting, you have to prioritize those.
Yep, yeah,
And it's especially difficult on things like Udemy, which, you want to support everybody, and Udemy is great at getting lots of people in the course. But the reality of the situation is once you factor in the cut Udemy takes and the fact that they're always on sale, which can be great for the student point of view, it means that realistically I've had situations where, depending on how the student buys the course, I've made 60 cents on a sale.
yeah.
And doing 2 hours worth of bug fixing on that rather than something that a whole bunch of other students need help with is just, I can't prioritize it. Like I want to. It's hard for me because I'm coming from a classroom background, teaching in schools and universities. I want to give that personal attention, but once you've got a few thousand students, that's just not practical.
Yeah, like I did an
Very
action RPG course for Game Maker Studio 2, and I actually liked the course quite a bit, but it just did not sell very well. And there were some students that really liked it and wanted me to do add a lot more features and stuff to it, but it just wasn't selling. And then on the flip side, like my Godot course, the 1-bit Godot course, has continued to sell pretty consistently this whole time.
It's pretty
And
cool.
so, I'm going to be updating it for Godot 4. And
are you updating it or making a new one?
It's going to be almost like a new one.
Right.
I won't say it's a new one, but it is going to be almost like a new one. It's going to feel significantly different.
We made the decision because there's so much changing, especially in 3D, that we kind of have to just make the whole thing new. Like updating that thing again is just not going to work.
But I'll have a very significant discount for students who have the original Godot course.
Yeah.
As in, like, they might be able to get the new one for $10 or something.
Questions. One from Star Dragon X. Another question is for Ben. When will your game be ready? That's always a good question. I've been looking for Pokemon games. Is it tomorrow?
Let's see. I see. No, it's definitely not tomorrow, unfortunately. I'll be doing a Kickstarter for it, and that will have a better date nailed down then. I've found that early in development, I've kind of found this like distinguishing feature between like this mental model between making content for a game versus like implementing the systems. And so I'm still kind of in the systems phase, and like it's really hard to gauge how long something's going to take when you're at that point. It's a lot easier to be like, oh yeah, I can make this many new creatures at about this pace, and so therefore I'll be done at about this time. So it's easier to judge content at that point, like how long content takes to make versus how long it takes to tweak all the systems.
And it's really hard to estimate stuff like that. I mean, Tynan Sylvester, the guy who did RimWorld, or is doing RimWorld because it's just a major expansion, talks about the 90-90 rule, where the first 90% of your game takes 90% of the time, and the last 10% of your game takes 90%
of the time.
Yeah.
And I think for this game, for Demon Lock, it's going to be, once I get it to the Kickstarter, most of the kind of unknowns are going to be solved at that point.
Right.
And it will just be, I have to make content, like add new creatures, add new abilities. And I can gauge that better. So when the Kickstarter comes out, I'll have a better answer.
Question from Chevifer. How do you make the volumetric fog work in Godot 4? I don't see it in the asset library, assuming it's not yet supported. I've been trying to play with that, but environments and particles have both been bugged on my side. So I'll know more later. If worse comes to worse, I will see if we can get the God Rays plugin that I'm using, which is awesome, updated and tweak some of that. There is volumetric fog in Godot 4, but I haven't yet played with it. There was a video of someone getting it to work, actually. It looked really cool. Daz, that's not a question. Not downloaded it for Loxy, just got home, so I'll get on it. Azrael, proud owner of your RPG course, Ben, ARPG and the turn-based one. Also not a question, but good to hear. Jelly, where are Ben's courses hosted? They are on the internet.
Yeah.
Ben, do you have a more specific address for it?
So I have a couple pixel art courses on Udemy, and then I have my 1-Bit Godot course on my site, which is heartgamedev.com. But if you haven't done my stuff on YouTube, like the 2D action RPG, we want to be clear here, since there's a 3D action RPG and a 2D action RPG. If you want to,
well, I wrote that too, so I'll take a third.
yeah. I would recommend checking out my 2D action RPG, Godot action RPG on YouTube, because it's free. It'll give you a pretty good idea of what my courses are like.
Yep.
Perfect.
I mean, you can also give him money. That's fine. Stop talking people out of buying courses. I mean, believe me, I would love to give all this stuff away for free, but there is a balancing act. Like, unless you guys want me to live in your shed.
Oh, shed life.
All right, so while we're here, let's take a quick look at the Kickstarter. For those of you who don't know, our Kickstarter is linked here. And yeah, you're going for action RPG. So the idea is to teach you how to make a game like this. I'm saying like this. The animations are still placeholder because we're using Mixamo animations, which you can use, but we cannot give you. So we're going to have to do something else there. The UI, the UI graphics specifically, and the music is still placeholder.
Some of the music.
Some of the music.
Yep.
Mike did send me his sketch for the new dungeon music, and I liked it because it was very skeletons. Lots of marimba. It was very funny.
Xylophone.
Whatever. Same thing.
Oh.
We are currently just under £500 from our first stretch goal. First stretch goal is the overworld. I'm trying not to go into sales voice and gush. That increases the asset pack to be nature and outdoors. Sorry. So I'm thinking, and Mike can correct me if I'm wrong, trees and flowers and stuff. We're also going to be doing asset packs for particles, because right now we just have one particle in lots of different colors. And more soundtrack.
One thing I'll just jump in there, with all of the asset packs, they will be geared specifically to work in Godot. They will work in other game engines as well, but we will be making sure that in Godot they're drag and drop. You'll get the TSCM pre-made, almost like if you're used to other places like a prefab. You drag and drop it in, it have collision on it, etc.
I kind of want to make a t-shirt that we can put on the Kickstarter that just says, I didn't know Godot could do 3D. We'll be doing a 2D UI elements creation course. We'll be doing a concept art course, which we teased earlier, or showed some screenshots of earlier.
Yep.
Creating the world and creating the dungeon. And I will be extending the Godot course for how to work with environments, how to get those fun little effects that play with the lighting and the ambient lights. So yeah, I think we're pretty well on track for that. We are exactly halfway through the Kickstarter, which is always where it slows down. So
yeah.
I know you guys saw the huge boost we got last week, and then this week it slowed down. Don't worry, it's normal. That's going to happen.
It often goes in either one big S curve or
down.
No, go that way.
After that, we have the character classes, which is armor and clothing asset packs, and then more character concepts, creating nature course, Godot particle systems course, character and weapon classes. So that's things like this is a two-handed class, this is a one-handed class, this is a magic user, spells and projectiles, keys and locks, which is the beginning of the quest system. And then we get onto the procedural generation. If we keep going with those, great. There's lots of things we can add, but that's what I'm excited about.
Yes, and as we've said plenty of times, but it can be a bit confusing. But as we go up and meet those goals, everybody who's backed the Godot, the music, the Blender side, or the art side, those paths, or all three, you'll get the actual course or courses that go to that, and they will just expand in their content. It's really a way of making sure that we can get it out to as many people as possible, rather than just making some things inaccessible. Plus,
we're trying to make it as fair and generous as we can, while making sure that we actually have the money to develop the stuff, because this stuff takes a lot of time to make. And if we're doing that, we can't be making other courses and things.
Yeah.
While I'm on the subject, Godot 4 coming out means we get to start on this, and I start on I almost gave the name away, the other Godot 4 we're making. We are not putting that through Kickstarter. That is a decision we made internally, just because running 2 Kickstarters back to back for Godot 4 feels really greedy. I don't really want to be that guy, so we're not going to do that. But we will let you know when it's coming and when it's ready. And if you are in our lifetime program, you will get early access to it, and everyone else, you'll get a chance to buy it early at the discount price. And then as it gets bigger, we'll increase the price.
Yes.
Yeah. What did you say the name of that course was?
Awesome.
Oh,
Nice
sorry, chat. Sorry, chat. I tried.
I was going to say I'll tell Ben afterwards, but I bet he's just going to go register the URL and be like, that'll be £500. I don't think they'll do that.
Speaking of which, I should probably go register that domain.
Oh, you mean the thing we said we would do 2 months ago? We're on top of things.
Yeah.
See, that's what I would do. You'd tell me I'd go register the domain and then make you pay me for it.
So yeah, we're really excited about this project. I'm really excited about Godot 4. Oh, here's a question. If you could pick one thing for Godot 4 you're most excited about, could you pick one?
One feature from Godot 4.
Like, what's the thing that's got you most, like, happy, buzzed? I was going to say jazz.
Well,
I don't like jazz, so unjazzed.
Since I do a lot of 2D stuff, obviously I'm excited for all the 3D features too. Right. I think they all look amazing, but most of my projects, or at least the next few projects, are going to be 2D. I think the biggest thing that I'm excited for is it's a tie. It's a tie between new GD script, the changes they're making to GD script. I'm really excited about all of those, and the tile set, the tile map node, and all of those.
Tile map looks really good.
Yeah. Because I mean, I just really didn't like the old one.
Auto tiles are so fiddly in 3.x. I mean, they're great, but
it's like once you have them set up, awesome. But getting them set up is this huge pain.
And if you dare want occlusion and collision and navigation, I mean, say goodbye to your wrist, because that's a lot of clicking.
Yeah, exactly. You just get carpal tunnel just from one auto tile.
I've got a bunch I'm really excited about. The new navigation system looks really cool, with the ability to like put obstacles in and it'll reroute. The new lighting system looks amazing. But I think actually the thing I'm most excited about is collision particles.
Oh, yeah, I saw those. They look awesome.
They're pretty fancy.
Yeah.
I think you guys should improve your marketing publicity skills more. I think the course would do much better if people knew about it. You are absolutely right, and Mike and I have this conversation a lot.
Yep.
One thing we're both really bad at is marketing.
There is another thing that I'd like to mention here. We do actually go out and we mention it to people, but there's only so many times one person can mention it before it's deemed spam, especially on a forum or anything else. So if you want to help us get the word out there, that would be absolutely amazing. Even if it's just a cursory glance, don't know if you guys are interested in this sort of thing. Absolutely fine, however you want to approach it, because the more people that actually back the Kickstarter, the more content everyone gets. So that really is a win-win. And of course, because Godot can in fact do 3D, and this is going to be in Godot 4, it's going to be an amazing resource for everybody wanting to learn Godot.
And the assets as well. Really interesting question from Tech Box North, which might be a good place to end. I've heard many people say it's more profitable to make game dev courses than make actual games. Any comments?
Don't get into education if you want to.
Well, this is the thing: is both game development and education are bad places to go if you want to get rich. You can make a living, and you might get rich in either of them. Like we all know people who've made courses who made that one course at that one time and made a ton of money. And some instructors just, they hit the zeitgeist, they've got the right kind of energy, and they do great money-wise, but you don't go into education for money. I used to work in corporate finance, I got transferred to New York. I could afford a luxury apartment in a Dorman building in Upper East Side. I'm missing this money right now. Then I went into education because I hated what I was doing. And I don't just mean I hated my job. I mean, I hated what I was doing to the world. Like I was deliberately making people poorer so that other people could be rich. That just felt bad to me. Like I didn't have the right mindset. So I went into education and I feel much better. But man, I miss that money. That was some nice money. So I think both of them have that similar problem. But I don't know if you guys have a different view on that.
Well, certainly when developing a game, a lot of people who do that and actually go for it full time, it's really an all or nothing thing. They end up investing life savings into it and everything else. So there's also that drive behind there. If what you're doing and it doesn't succeed means that you're out on the streets, that's a pretty good incentive to actually get stuff done and get it done quickly.
That's a terrible gamble because a lot of games just don't make money because they don't get seen.
Advertisement is always a big thing. So yeah.
I mean, you release at the wrong time and another game comes out that overshadows you.
Yeah.
You know, like you've got this wonderful indie game, but Oblivion, whatever it is, 19 comes out the same week. Like, it's just not going to get noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah. My experience with it has been, I think here's the biggest difference for me. With a game, you can spend 2 months. Let's say you spend 2 months making a little indie game, right? The market is going to say, yeah, you can maybe charge $5 for that, right? And then if you spend 2 months making a course, the market is going to say, okay, we'll pay $30 for that. And so I think that's where that perception comes from, where, you know, you could say it's easier to make money selling courses than it is to make money selling games because people tend to pay more money for courses than they do for games a lot of the time. And so the sell of the course can be easier than the sell of the game, but you're also targeting more of a niche audience, right? So if you're making a course and you're selling it, there's a much smaller group of people who are actually going to be interested in buying that. Whereas if you're making a game, there's potentially a much larger group of people who are interested in playing games than they are in learning how to make them. And so, you know, I don't know. I think it depends on the person sometimes. I think it also depends on a little bit how much you're willing to sell your soul in order to make money. Because I think with courses, you can really go down that route too, where
like if we made the decision not to do that, and I think you did too, but there are techniques we could do that would make us a bunch more money.
And games have that too. You know, you make the mobile game and it's like, okay, how much do you want to sell your soul in order to make a bunch of money off this mobile game? And so, you know, if money's the thing that you're kind of worried about, then you said it best, Yann. The games industry and the teaching industry are probably not for you.
You could do them as hobbies, right? You could make tutorials on the side. You could do a little indie dev in the evenings when you've got some time and you're not exhausted. Don't ruin your health for either of these.
Yeah.
Which is really hard right now because, like, you know, when the tail end of lockdown and the pandemic is still raging and it's easy to stay in your house. Like, I realized yesterday I have barely left the house in 3 weeks. I should go on more walks because, you know, don't work 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
But it's only 18, right?
I mean, I don't know. I need my sleep. I need about 8 hours a night and 10 during the day, and then I'm good.
I've been tracking my sleep recently, and I'm actually considering I feel like I sleep for longer than I actually do, because I often go to bed at 2, 3, 4 a.m. and get up at 9, 10, 11 a.m. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I actually check the sleep tracking. I'm like, oh, I only had like 6 hours sleep on average for the entire week. That'll be a while. On Sunday I fell asleep in the afternoon.
I mean, honestly, I would say if you're someone who enjoys teaching, whether it's making tutorials or one-to-one or classrooms, it's an amazing experience. I mean, it really is. Like watching someone else suddenly realize their potential. And I don't even mean like, oh, I have my potential now. I mean, they understand they have that potential. That moment where they suddenly click and understand all these things that are in front of them, is just worth it.
One person doing that is just a phenomenal feeling.
I mean, I had an experience. Sorry, tangent. When I was working in New Jersey and I was teaching a public speaking class, and there was a guy who would sit at the back, and he was about 6'8" and huge, like shoulders and things, and just quiet and sitting at the back, didn't say a word. And the midterm was they had to do a poetry session. They had to read excerpts from 3 poems and then link them together. I said, they can be lyrics if you like. So he shuffles up, and he's all awkward and stuff, and he starts reading a Willie Nelson lyric. And he gets to the end. He says, I hate country music. This is what my brother was listening to when his armored transport was destroyed by an IED in Afghanistan. And I was angry at him for going. And the last conversation, we had a fight. And every time I hear this song, it makes me cry. And the entire room went quiet. And that moment for him made him realize, as he put it afterwards, I never realized people wanted to hear what I had to say. Moments like that are worth teaching for. You also get the other stuff where people hand in a final with the words, and this is serious, sent from my iPhone. Like, I have horror stories from teaching. But if you have the mindset, it's worth doing. And the same with game development. Like, if you have that mindset, you should do it. Don't worry too much about the money yet, unless you have the savings to gamble on it, because you are gambling.
Yeah, do it as a hobby.
Until
Do
you're
it part-time on the side. And then, yeah.
Definitely.
I feel like we've reached a sort of natural.
I was about to say we've actually gone over the hour that we usually do. So, has anybody got any final questions? The loop behind me, by the way, Daz, is from Erin's new course. So I've popped that up there. But yes, I love your idea of actually putting some gameplay footage in the background there.
It's a good idea.
Yep. And also, I saw something earlier. I forgot to reply to it. I think it was Azrael Studios. He visited my SoundCloud. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for visiting. And yeah, some of that stuff is years old now, and I'm looking forward to getting back into some more music.
So I think at this point we should say, Ben, thank you so much for joining us. It's always wonderful chatting with you.
You're welcome. It is. It was a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. And, you know, I keep telling you this, but you were the tutorials I first started with, so it's all your fault.
Yeah, I don't know what I've done.
You must have done something terrible in the past life.
Phenomenal. And of course, thank you to all of our backers so far. Spread the word.
Yeah, and even, I mean, we know that right now times are tough for some people, and there's a bunch of people saying, you know, I wish I could support, but I can't. That's fine. We totally get it. If you can tell somebody who might be interested, great. And if not, just knowing you guys are on our side is fantastic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's the things. This is the best outro ever.
Bye. Sorry, had to be done.
Thanks, folks. See you next time.
Yep, same time next week. See you all later. Bye.
I can't believe you did that.